Aloha! Welcome back to the Anxiety Coaches Podcast. I'm your host and coach, Gina Ryan, and I'm so happy to be with you again today as we consider the many ways to bring your mind and body back to its natural peace and calm. In today's episode, I am going over part 2 of Untangling the Anxiety Trio: Thoughts, Emotions, and Feelings. And if you didn't listen to part 1, it's the background about how our emotions, feelings, and thoughts play a part in our ability to come out of the anxiety wormhole. And I encourage you, if you didn't listen to part 1, to listen to that either before or after you listen to this one. This is going to be the practical steps, the specific exercises and examples that will help you begin to put some of these ideas into practice. So the first exercise that I have here is a thought, emotion, and feeling awareness. So awareness is the key word here. This is going to help the anxiety sufferer become more mindful, to become more mindful of our thoughts, our emotions, and our feelings as distinct elements. Because like I said in the last episode, sometimes we don't pay a lot of attention to this. We think we had emotions, we had feelings, we have thoughts, and we kind of have it all lumped together, like a whole ball of wax. But there really are distinct elements. So here's what I would like you to try. When you notice you're feeling anxious, I want you to pause for a moment and take a breath and ask yourself with that breath, what thought just went through my mind? For example, I'm not prepared for this meeting. Now, if I were to think that, or I was going to be on somebody else's podcast and I said, I'm not prepared for this podcast, that would raise my blood pressure, it would raise my heart rate, and it would also probably start releasing some stress hormones just from thinking that. And now I also want you to ask yourself, what emotion am I feeling? For example, I would be feeling the anxiety rising if I were not prepared for the meeting or for being on the podcast. And finally, ask, what feeling do I associate with this? So it could be, I feel tension in my chest. This is where we're going to bring the body in. We're going to be aware of what this thought that just went through my mind, what it made me feel in my physical body. Let's say I felt tension in my chest. For many, it might be your belly. It could be butterflies, sweating. You know the list. Now, once you have identified the thought that you had, the emotion it brought up, and the feeling that you had, I want you to write them down. This is going to ask you to pull up your journal, of course. You might notice that just labeling each of these will help to ease some of the anxiety. This is what awareness is, actually being with it. For an example, let's go back to the presentation. What if I don't do well in my presentation was the thought. The emotion was anxiety, high stress. The feeling, unease, tightness in the stomach. By simply identifying and separating out these components, you might notice your anxiety begin to soften around the edges because you're no longer overwhelmed by the internal chaos of, oh my God, what's going on? No, you know exactly what's going on. You are having awareness. So that's exercise number 1, awareness. Because I want you to really understand and see for yourself on paper in your journal the distinct elements of thoughts, emotions, and feelings. And just like our emotions and feelings can bring us to have new thoughts, our thoughts also cause us to have emotions and feelings. It just keeps going around. And where we interrupt that little cycle is with our thinking. And you can do that once you are aware. So get that journal out, ask those questions. What just went through my mind? What emotion am I feeling? And what feeling do I associate with this? I really think that will help you to see with your eyes on paper what's going on and how separate and distinct each of those are. Now, here's another exercise. This one will be more of a reframing of your thoughts. So we could just call it that, reframing thoughts. It will get you to replace negative thoughts with more balanced or neutral, realistic alternatives, which can reduce the emotional intensity. So, when a negative thought pops up, such as, I'm going to fail, I want you to write it down. And then ask yourself, is this thought 100% true? Most of the time, you're going to realize your thought is exaggerated, that it is not 100% true. Next, I want you to reframe the thought in a more balanced and neutral way. Instead of, I'm going to fail, maybe you could say, I've prepared for this. I might feel nervous, but I'll do my best. And I want you to then notice how reframing and saying it in a different way, more neutral kind of attitude toward what's going on, that it changes the emotion and feeling that follow. So let's run through that. The original thought would be something like, I won't be able to finish the project on time. The reframed thought could be, I may need to work hard, but I can manage it step by step, and I can ask for help if needed. And the emotion after reframing will be more calm and more determination. And the feeling after reframing is a sense of relief or of motivation. So we're just splitting it out again. Reframing your thoughts helps to prevent anxiety from flaring, from spiraling. It keeps you from going down the wormhole. Yes, you had a feeling. Yes, you had an emotion, but you don't have to spiral down the wormhole with it. By reframing, it offers your mind a new, more positive, balanced, neutral narrative that soothes the emotional reactions. This is a beautiful place to go. And I know I talk about it, but I hope that today you're beginning to see the practical steps that you can actually take. Yes, in the beginning, it is good to write it down in your journal. And maybe in the beginning, maybe it's the middle of your day and you're busy and you can't just sit and take 3 minutes or whatever to write all this down. At least jot down the original thought. And then later on, you can go back over maybe what you were thinking and then what you could have reframed it as, right? Because then we can use that in the future. But if we just keep sliding through the day and just going, oh yeah, I had some tough thoughts and I didn't have time and I was in a hurry, nothing changes if nothing changes. So at least take some time maybe at the end of your day or when you get a minute to write down what your original thought was and how you might have been able to reframe it differently. And in the future, you begin to just do this automatically. You don't need to put it on paper. Your mind will be able to just go there. It becomes automatic. Next up for exercise, I have grounding with physical sensations. So here we are bringing the body in to this piece because grounding exercises help to get us, when we are feeling high stress or anxiety, to get us out of the thoughts, especially when they're beginning to run rampant and they're pulling you right down that wormhole and you maybe can't change them. This is what I mean when I say there's times where interrupting the cycle with the thoughts can be really hard. So let's go to the grounding and pull ourselves out of our thoughts and focus on the present moment through physical sensations. Now, I know I offered this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise a few episodes back for children, but I realized when I was doing that, I don't want you to think that's just for children because anybody can use this. This is not just for the little ones. So let's go over it. When anxiety feels overwhelming, I want you to pause. You notice I keep saying that. When you start to feel those stress and anxious feelings come up, pause. Be aware of what's going on. But today, for the grounding, I want you to then engage in a quick grounding exercise. And it is identifying 5 things that you can see, just like I said with the little ones. 4 things that you can touch. 3 sounds that you can hear. 2 things that you can smell. And 1 thing that you can taste. And after doing this exercise in the moment, notice how your emotions and feelings may have shifted. I want you to pay attention to that. See what changed. Some people just need to pause and they can feel a shift. Now, other people need more grounding and they need to do something like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But take a moment and notice what emotions and feelings have shifted. So as an example, if you're at your desk feeling anxious about a deadline, I want you to start by observing your surroundings. Start with 5. I can see my computer screen, my notebook, the light outside, my coffee mug, and the clock. 4. I can touch the keys on my laptop, the smooth surface of my desk, my pen, and my soft sweater. 3, hearing. I can hear the hum of the air conditioner. I can hear voices in the background, and I can hear my typing. 2, I can smell the essential oil I have on my desk. I can smell the aroma of my neighbor's coffee. And 1, I can taste the herbal tea that I am sipping. Now, grounding in this way helps to shift your attention away from the anxious thoughts when they are running like wild horses and bringing your mind back to the present with your senses, all of your senses. And this reduces the emotional charge of the anxiety and makes you feel more centered. It really is that thing of coming back to neutral or just coming back to the middle, the present moment. The 4th exercise I have is for self-compassion. Because when we practice self-compassion, we can reduce the self-critical thoughts that fuel anxiety, and we can cultivate feelings of acceptance. So when you notice anxiety that is coming up and it's accompanied by self-criticism such as, I'm not good enough, pause again and take a breath and ask yourself, what would I say to a friend going through this? Obviously, you will replace the self-critical thought with a more compassionate response. And remind yourself that it's okay to feel anxious and that you're not alone in experiencing these emotions. Take a moment then to say something kind to yourself, like, I'm doing my best, and that's enough. So as an example, you might have thought a self-critical thought such as, I'm such a failure for being anxious about this presentation. And the self-compassionate response could be, it's natural to feel anxious in these situations. I'm not alone, and I've prepared well for this. Practicing self-compassion like this helps to reduce the intensity of anxiety and high stress by eliminating the harsh inner criticism, which only takes us down the wormhole, and allows feelings of calm and understanding to replace the anxiety. And exercise number 5 is journaling, but journaling to externalize your thoughts, your emotions, and your feelings. Journaling can help you in a lot of different ways, but today's journaling can help you gain clarity by putting your thoughts, emotions, and feelings into words. It externalizes your internal experience, making it easier to analyze and to manage. You actually can see what's going on outside of yourself instead of it being the hamster wheel inside or the monkey mind jumping from limb to limb. So, I want you to write it down. Here are the questions. What thought triggered your anxiety? What emotion are you feeling? What feeling did that emotion create in your body or mind? And how might you reframe that thought? Now, this process gives you a visual representation of your inner world. You're really getting to see what's going on inside of you by providing distance from the emotional overwhelm. Now, I know I had a lot there to write down. I think everything that I talked about today will be put together on paper and put into our group coaching as a skill sheet. So if you're in our group, you can look forward to that on paper. Otherwise, you can go back and write those questions down. It's important. So I want to share how this might look, like from a coach's perspective. Like, I work with a lot of people. So I've worked with clients who many have felt overwhelmed before meetings, people in big positions. And we practiced and talked about the thought, emotion, feeling awareness exercise by identifying their thought, such as, everyone's going to judge me. They realized this was triggering intense anxiety. And so we reframe the thought to, people are focused on their own work, not judging me, which helps to ease the anxiety and gives them a feeling of confidence. And using grounding techniques during meetings, they gradually became more comfortable and calm. It's cumbersome at first, but it becomes automatic over time. So I want you to keep practicing. You got this. And now for today's quote. It is not the things themselves that disturb men, but their judgments about these things. And that's from Epictetus. I'll be back in a few more days with another podcast. Until then, be well and aloha.